Welcome to Bruce Hurwitz Presents Meet the Experts. I'm your host, Bruce Hurwitz of Hurwitz Strategic Staffing. You can find us on the web at hsstaffing.com. I hope you'll consider us for all your staffing, career counseling, and speech writing needs. I am delighted to be joined today by Thomas Kereszti, who will be discussing how to unlock your potential for leadership success. Meet the Experts is sponsored by P&K CPAs. P&K is a full-service accounting firm. They provide accounting and consulting services to businesses ranging from startups to small and mid-cap companies to nonprofits as well as high net worth individuals. Contact them today for a free consultation at pk-cpas.com or call them at 973-882-8810. They will be happy to be of service. Tom, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's my pleasure. Please take a moment or two and introduce yourself to our viewers.
Well, when people ask me that, usually, historically, I used to say, I did this in business or I did that in business. But in my later years, I try to introduce myself as a dad. I'm a proud father of 3 daughters and been married to the same woman, Kathy, for, we met in 1976, got married in 86. So we've had a long journey together, and it's really a pleasure to have them as part of my support group. All this leadership stuff, all this mentoring stuff doesn't mean much if you can't mentor your kids, if you can't lead your family. So it all starts there. And then if you do, if you learn there, you do a good job there, then maybe you can lead people in business as well.
Well, if you're going to introduce yourself that way, then I have to ask an obvious question. We'll forget about this leadership business. What is the key to having a successful decades-long marriage?
Patience, love and patience. It's, I call life a sine wave. You got a sine wave that always has peaks and valleys. And just like your heartbeat, it beats off and on, just like you breathe in and breathe out. Marriage has its ups and downs. And you have to get it through, you go through the peaks, you go through the valleys, and persistence, love, and patience.
And that's also the key to living with 4 women.
Yes.
I'll probably get into trouble for that one, but who cares? Why don't we get started? Topic is leadership.
Yes.
Define it. What is leadership?
Well, leadership is pretty much just influencing others to follow your ideas. So it's a pretty simple concept. If you can influence others, that your ideas are good and you have a worthy cause, or there's a number of things that I talk about in my book about leadership and how to influence others. And there's many others. I just maybe go 10 or 12 of them that I say. And that's pretty much it. If you can just convince people, influence people to follow your lead, then all of a sudden you're leading.
Years ago, I got into a debate with a nice person who was professional, not nasty, about leadership. And I quoted Peter Drucker, and I just said, you can have all the attributes of a leader. You can be honest, ethical, but good communicator. People can like you and everything else. But if you don't have any followers, you're not a leader. A leader has to have followers. Do you have a different definition of a leader?
No, I mean, John Maxwell says it best. He said, look, if you're not leading people, then you're just taking a walk by yourself, right? So that's pretty much, to your point. But people will only follow you if they see something to follow. If there's something in it for them, if there's, if they see that you care for them, if they see that there's value for them to follow you, then then there's some attributes that they will follow. Otherwise, you can tell people. I mean, in my book, one of the examples that I use, it's a really cute one, is talking about my kids. When my kids were small, I was always the softie. I never disciplined my kids too much, but every once in a while they would really get under my skin. And I say, okay, time out, stand against the wall. You have your nose and your toes touching the wall and stand there for 2 minutes. You got a time out. And my first two daughters, that worked fine. And then my youngest daughter, we did that with her one time, and she just refused. She just rebelled. She said, "You're crazy. I'm not doing that." And no matter how many times I had to tell her that I was the dad, and she had to do it, she just refused to do it. She wouldn't buy into it, right? I didn't have the influence with her. And I said, that's kind of how the world works, right? People stand around, and my two other daughters, they said to themselves, like, how stupid were we to do what dad told us, and when she's getting away with it? And if you if you go into a workplace, you work in an environment, it pretty much works the same way. You try to, muscle people to do stuff, but if they don't buy into it, they don't do it. And then everybody stands around and watches and says, well, if they didn't do it, I don't have to do it. I mean, why follow this guy? So they really have to buy into your ideas in order for people to follow you.
Well, years ago, I wrote a textbook, which I don't recommend that anybody buy because it's too dated. But there are a few things that are still valid. And one is I wrote about followers by conviction and followers by coercion. And if you're a leader and your followers are followers by coercion, that means they have to follow you. They're the boss, they're the general. But sooner or later, you're going to lose them. It's the followers by conviction that really make you a leader, because they believe in you.
Well, absolutely. One of the roles that I have is, I like volunteering. So I'm a man of faith. So we have a large church in San Diego called the Rock Church, and they have a business ministry. We call ourselves the Business Roundtable. So it's a reach out, and it really helps business leaders and business owners or people who are leading a business, Christian values and how they can implement that in a business environment. It's a volunteer organization. Nobody gets paid. All right. So if you really want to test your leadership skills, see if people will follow you in a volunteer organization, because they have nothing at stake. They can walk away anytime. If they don't like it, if they don't believe in it, if they don't buy into it, there's nothing at stake. So the only thing that keeps them there is whether or not they believe in a vision and whether they believe in a leader.
It's an excellent point. My background is nonprofit, and I couldn't agree with you more. But let's get to those books that are behind you. Simple question. What are the 4 keys to leadership success? Well,
these are the 4 keys. And when I looked at my life and I said, okay, there was these peaks and valleys on the sine wave. And I said, well, look, what was working when I was on a peak and what wasn't working when I was in the valleys? And upon reflection, I came up with these 4 keys. Then I looked around and said, okay, well, is that just unique to me? Or if I see successful companies, successful leaders, do they share those same values? And I came to the conclusion that it's pretty much common that if you get these 4 right, and it's pretty simple, but it's not so easy to implement. But if you get these 4 right, then you could be successful. And the 4 are, the first one is, I call it a person's character, which is equivalent to a company culture. In fact, if you have a startup company, the founder's character probably becomes the default company culture over the short term. The second one is a vision. Everyone should have a vision for themselves, and every company has a successful vision, right? The third one is a growth strategy, and I emphasize growth because unless you're growing, then it's not really a strategy, right? Mm-hmm. And then the fourth one, who's in your inner circle? Who do you surround yourself with? Do people add value to you, or are they the factors, or who's in your inner circle, and choose wisely. And then there's actually a fifth, what I call it the bonus key. It's not on the cover, but it's hidden in the one of the chapters, and it's really distinction between communicating and connecting with people. And I say it to all the time. I say, look, there are people who are great informers, so they just inform everybody. Then there's some people who are much higher level. They're great communicators, and there's a few people who are great connectors. And they actually connect with the heart, connect with the soul, connect with people. And those are the really successful people.
I'm interested in culture. I'm interested in all of this, but let's start with culture. So character, culture. I was a year ago, actually. I was reading, it was the one thing left on my bucket list, was to read War and Peace. And at the very end, for me, it got interesting. And in the epilogue, Tolstoy wrote that culture is intellectual activity. And that totally changed my view of culture, because I used to say that culture is how you run your business, the atmosphere, the benefits you provide to your employees. And then I started thinking about what Tolstoy wrote, and it's, the way you think. That's how I think culture is created. It's your thought processes. What's your definition of culture?
Well, look, as I mentioned to you, a culture is really equivalent to a person's character. So how do you form your character as an individual, right? It starts with your values, right? So your values are going to be the foundational base for what your character is. The other thing that forms your character is and it took me a while to figure this out, but imagine you have three circles. I think it's called a Venn diagram. So you put a question in each one of those circles. The first question is, who are you? And that's all about your values of who you are. The second question is, what are you passionate about? And then the third question is, what are you good at? So if it took me a while to figure this out, but if I fill in those three circles, who am I? I'm a servant leader. What am I passionate about? I'm passionate about making other people better. Some people say that I add value to people, but in all my interactions with individuals, I try to make them better, make them more successful. And what am I good at? I'm pretty good leading, and I'm pretty good at mentoring. So the beauty of that definition is I can take that definition anywhere. I can mentor my kids, or I can mentor my employees. I can add value to my customers, to my suppliers, my colleagues at church, wherever. And if you take that definition, what am I good at? Again, I can mentor kids. I can mentor my sports colleagues. So you can take that same definition and use it in any part of your life, so it doesn't get confusing, right? Because some people, when you look at their character, you see them in a social setting versus you see them in a business setting, or you see them in a family setting. You kind of wonder, well, is that the same person? But if you do that consistently, then you kind of make it much easier on yourself, because you use those same three circles no matter where you are in life. And you can use that same principle for a company, right? And company culture is pretty much that. And by the way, if you don't define your company culture, it will define itself, right? And you may end up with a company culture you don't like or you don't want, but that's because you didn't take the time to design it. And it's not just about posters on the wall. It's about reinforcing it. One of the examples I like to use is Pat Gelsinger. He's the CEO of VMware, and they have Epic Squared. Right, Epic Squared is part of their, that's their culture. That's their, you'll see it on their the website. And when I saw Pat, I said, okay, Epic Squared. One of the C squared. One of the C stands for community. One is customers, the other one is community. So I said, how do you reinforce that with thousands and thousands of employees all over the world? And without missing a beat, Pat goes to me and goes, just last month we were in China. We had a sales meeting, and just like with all sales meetings, the guys like to go out, they like to party and have fun. But the next day, everybody had to get up and do community service and building part of, repairing part of the wall, right? So without meeting, it says, okay, Epic Squared, C stands for community. So everything that we do, all our employees, whether they're in China, whether they're in the US, whatever, have to give to the community in one way or another.
What's ironic is that for the last 15 minutes, I think our viewers have gotten to know your character, but Now, of course, I am at an advantage or a disadvantage because I read your bio. You haven't told us what you do for a living. You could be anything from a retired executive to a business coach.
So yeah, retired executive. So the title of the book, C-Suite Beyond, is basically that. I mean, I was a C-suite. I was a CEO before I got to be a CEO. I was a CFO before that. You know, so C-suite. Been in that position for multiple companies in varying sizes. The last one I had was what I call a feather in my cap. I had a company I was running about $380 million. About 2,000 employees across 12 countries. So that was, you know, I would say where I got out of the corporate world and started my own business, did that for about 10 or 11 years. And then again, I said, okay, well, what can I do next? How can I start giving back? That's when I had this idea about starting to give back about some of the knowledge, you know, what made me successful, where did I fail and why did I fail? So that was really the source and the inspiration for this book. So, you know, today we use this book. It's about consulting, about, you know, working with companies and workshops. If they don't have a culture, if they don't have a vision, if they want to know how to put that together, I help them. So that's kind of, you know, where I am now, where I will, like I mentioned, unless you have a growth strategy, it's not really strategy. And I just keep continuing to grow. I learn a little bit more every day. People around me, from customers, I learn more. I still learn from my kids. You know, it's just
Especially the youngest.
I'm sorry.
Especially the youngest.
I'm sorry.
Especially the youngest.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't stand up against the wall.
Especially the youngest. She's the youngest now is 27. So. But so again, that's you know, that's what I do now, is just kind of give back, mentor folks. I just had a wonderful experience with one of the guys that I mentored early on. He just retired at the age of, I think his mid-50s now. He's moving to New Zealand, his wife and his kids, and he retired from running a division of a large company. I think it was about $1.5 billion, right? And he was one of the guys that I mentored early on. And I just had a great discussion with him. So it's fun watching people become, you know, really, really successful. And I was able to touch their lives, and that's just a great testimony for me.
Let's move on. We've discussed character, values, mission. What's the difference between mission and vision?
Well, that's a good question. To me, it's a subtle difference. Sometimes they, you know, change it, and they use it interchangeable. The one I like to use all the time is Coca-Cola, or you can use Nike. Like, for example, Nike, a lot of people think just do it. It's not just do it. If you actually look at Nike, it's basically unleashing human potential. Right?
Is that their mission or is that their vision?
I think you got me on this one. I use them interchangeably. To me, there's not a much difference, but to me, whether it's a vision is where you go. I guess the mission is why, right? But it's really a picture for long term of where you want to be. Visions and mission statements should not change every 5 years or every 8 years. You know, they should be solid. You should think them through. And then once you have them, they don't involve a lot. You know, maybe they involve a little, but you know, you look at Coca-Cola. I think in their case, it's their mission statement is we refresh the world. You know, you can use it vision or mission statement, but again, it's a definition, you know, for that company. And you know, you can use semantics. You can call it, okay, it's a mission statement, it's a vision statement. I think to me, what is the importance is that it's a long-term roadmap to where you want to be, and it doesn't change. It doesn't change every 5 years. It doesn't change every 10 years. If you looked at Coca-Cola way back in, you know, in the 50s, 60s, when they had annual reports, it still said we refresh the world.
And is the purpose of the mission statement or the vision statement to inform your decision making, or is there an additional purpose?
To me, a vision statement, and again, whether it's mission or vision statement, helps you is it really helps you. You're 100% correct. It helps you make those major decisions. Right? So let's take a business, for example. Let's take, you want to do a strategic plan, which is usually 3 years. That strategy has to be aligned with your vision. Everything in that strategy should support and fit your vision statement. And where companies get in trouble is they see the shiny object, and it takes them off course because they see the shiny object. Oh, it's a great opportunity to make a quick buck, or it's fun, it's interesting, whatever, but it doesn't fit their vision statement. And all of a sudden, it takes them off track, and they kind of lose it. Simon Sinek, I think, used actually Kodak as an example, that how they lost their way because their strategy went off their vision statement. It's a great example. Simon doesn't call it, their vision. Simon calls it their why, I think is what he calls it. But it kind of boils down to the same thing. If you use your vision statement or mission statement as a guide for decision making, and you stick with that and don't let the shiny objects kind of get you off course, you should be okay.
Growth strategy. Now, there are some people who don't want to have a $1 million company. They want to make enough money to be able to do what they want to do. They don't want the hassle of having employees. They like things to be nice, simple. They do the work, they get paid, and they live the life that they want. And there are those who want 7, 8, they want to be unicorns. How do you deal, assuming that a person is open to growing their business to the next level? How do you connect? No, I'll ask it a different way. How do you use their mission, vision, character, culture, values to enable them to reach the conclusion that it is time for them to grow and get to the next level, to overcome their fear?
Look, your vision statement should be bold enough. I think Dave Martin said everyone should have a cathedral vision. So when the Cologne Cathedral in Cologne Cathedral, I think it took like 400 or 500 years to complete. I think it's called Sagrada Basilica or something, the one in Barcelona.
Okay.
When Gaudi first designed that, it was going to be a 200-year project. So by definition, a cathedral vision kind of outlives you. So if you set yourself a cathedral vision, then by definition, you're going to be constantly growing because it's going to be a lifetime journey, right? If you set yourself a cathedral vision, it's not something that you're going to achieve in 5 years, right? It's not something you're going to be achieved in 10 years. It's going to continue to make you grow, right? So, and I don't know if that kind of makes sense, but look, even if it's a personal vision statement, I'll share with you mine, right? It's generic, but it's a journey, right? My personal vision statement is man of God, leader of men. Right? So man of God, leader of men, it's pretty generic. You can kind of fit anything underneath there, but I can tell you that under that vision statement, whatever I do is going to meet 2 criteria. Is going to have a leadership role, and somehow it's going to honor God. You can take that anywhere, and you can grow with that from now until the day I'm 6 foot under.
Mm-hmm. No argument. Your 4th point. Before we started, I forget what it was that you asked me, but we were discussing social media, and you asked me what my network was, and I said it was 44,500 people, but don't imagine for a moment that 44,500 people are going to be watching this video. All right?
Man, maybe we got lucky.
Who knows? Who knows? It's a long holiday weekend. You never know.
Yeah.
People are stuck at home. You said, who is in your circle? Now, these 44,500 people are real people, but I don't know them. I can't even tell you how we got connected. We're connected on LinkedIn. That's how this all came about. How do you get real people in your network? 44,500 isn't real. The X number of people I know I can pick up the phone, ask for help, rely upon, they're my real circle. How do you create that real circle?
So here's my suggestion. Remember I told you about connecting with people?
Yes.
Rather than communicating with people? Well, we probably communicate with those 40,000 people on LinkedIn or on, social media.
Whatever.
When I had a very good friend that I knew from high school. He passed away, I think, about 6 years ago. And throughout our lives, we were always best of friends and confidants. And at his celebration of life event, I said to folks, look, I don't understand my kids, how they have 10,000 friends on Facebook and Instagram or whatever. I said, I can count my true friends on one hand. And those are the people that are in my inner circle. And Shane was certainly on top of the list. Whenever I had a business challenge, I would run it by him. If I had a marriage challenge, I would run it by him. We watched the New York Giants win 4 Super Bowls, Yankees, I don't know how many World Series together, but we shared the ups and downs of life, the fun, the bad times, the good times together. And we were confidants. When he had difficulties, he would ask me, what do you think, Tom? When I had difficulties, I would ask him, what do you think? Right? So you should choose people in the circle that can add value to you, that will be there to support you, right? That you can bounce ideas off. And by the way, something that I did not understand early on in my career, it took me a while to figure it out. When you get into C-suite, you have relationships, close relationships with the people that work in your inner circle, with their families. Their wives should know your wives, right? You shouldn't be shy about inviting them over to the house for birthday parties, for taking vacations together. That's how you build community. That's how you build connections. So a successful C-suite is not just a working relationship, but it's a lot more.
Tom, I think that is a perfect way to end this interview, this conversation. I want to share with our viewers your contact information. I want to thank you profusely for coming on.
My pleasure.
I want to wish you and your family and all of our viewers a very happy new year, one of health, prosperity, and I'll just give you the last word. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, just in 2020, 2021, just be bold, be courageous. Don't be afraid to pivot, and just keep growing and keep loving people.
And on that note, I thank everyone for watching. I'm Bruce Hurwitz. I wish you all the best.